This is the Scholarly Bear October 2011 theme, Suicides in Literature. Not a very cheery topic, but I digress. Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. In Romeo and Juliet, the two star-crossed lovers commit suicide near the end of the play, leading to the reconciliation of the Capulets and Montagues. In Anna Karenina by Tolstoy, Anna Karenina commits suicide by throwing herself under a train. She is the wife of Alexei Karenin, but instead loves Count Vronsky. When she finally succeeds in getting Vronsky, she becomes paranoid of his infidelity and lack of interest in her, which prompts her suicide. In Sorrows of Young Werther by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, perhaps the most famous literary suicide in that it provoked many copycat suicides. In the work, Werther greatly loves Charlotte, also known as Lot, who is promised to Albert. After Charlotte and Albert are married, Werther comes to the conclusion that either he, Charlotte, or Albert must die. Unable to harm another, he shoots himself in the head with a pistol he borrowed from Albert. In Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, Okonkwo, the leading figure and wrestling champion of Umuofia, experiences many troubles with the white missionaries destroying the culture of the Igbo people. After a missionary church is burned, Okonkwo kills a messenger of the white government and realizes that his people will not revolt with him against the white government. Okonkwo then commits suicide by hanging himself, which is strictly against the Igbo custom. Sylvia Plath is not a literary character who committed suicide, but is instead an author, a female author that famously committed suicide. She killed herself by putting her head in an oven to die from carbon monoxide poisoning. The depression leading to her suicide came in part from her separation from her husband and fellow poet, Ted Hughes, who she referenced as a man in black with a Mein Kampf look in her poem Daddy. She writes about suicide in her only novel, The Bell Jar, which is about Esther Greenwood. Other works include the book of poetry Ariel, which includes Lady Lazarus and Daddy, and another book of poetry called The Colossus. In Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton, Ethan Frome, who is married to Zenobia, falls in love with her cousin, Maddie. Zenobia wishes to send Maddie away for being a poor helper, which is furthered when Zenobia discovers a broken pickle dish. And Ethan wishes to run away with Maddie but lacks the money, so instead he and Maddie enter a suicide pact, which involves them sledding into a tree. Ethan agrees and they crash into an elm. However, neither him nor Maddie actually die from the incident, so not quite suicide, but almost there. In Miss Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, Septimius Smith is a World War I veteran who suffers from hallucinations of his deceased friend, Evans. After considering razors, a gas fire, or a bread knife, he commits suicide by jumping out of a window while Miss Dalloway is throwing a party. In Hedda Gabler by Henrik Ibsen, Eilert Lovborg is convinced by the manipulative Hedda Gabler to commit suicide by use of her father's pistols when he loses a manuscript that would compete with her husband, George Tessman's, position as a university professor. Judge Brack, knowing the origins of the pistol that killed Lovborg, impresses upon Hedda, which then causes her to commit suicide as well by shooting herself in the head. In the Aeneid by Virgil, Dido, queen of Carthage, falls madly in love with Aeneas after Venus gets Cupid to trick her. Aeneas is then momentarily distracted from his goal of founding a city in Italy, but is reminded when Jupiter sends Mercury. After Aeneas leaves Carthage, Dido is so saddened that she commits suicide by stabbing herself with Aeneas' sword upon a pyre. In Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, John the Savage grows up on the New Mexico Savage Reservation, and his entire worldview is based on his knowledge of Shakespeare's plays. He is brought to the world state by Bernard Marx, but finds himself unable to fit in with the godless and emotionless society. He whips himself publicly, which inspires a mass orgy of soma and sex. After waking from the orgy, John is disgusted with himself and hangs himself. And lastly, in Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller, Willie Loman is a traveling salesman who's mentally degenerate. He is the father of Biff and Happy, and he causes Biff to wish to not succeed despite Willie. After Willie and Biff reconcile, Willie believes that his son now wants to become a businessman, so he kills himself in an auto accident so that Biff can get money to start a business. Biff, however, has no wish to become a businessman, so the money goes instead to Happy, who follows in his father's footsteps.